Welcome back. The Trump Organization is expected to be hit with criminal charges as soon as this week. Multiple people familiar with the matter tell NBC News. Trump attorney Ron Fischetti said company lawyers met with New York District Attorney Cy Vance on Thursday to try and persuade his office and the state not to go forward. Fischetti told NBC that for Vance to charge the company is, quote, completely outrageous. The Washington Post reports Vance's office set today as the deadline for the former president's attorneys to make any final arguments as to why the Trump Organization shouldn't be charged for attempts to avoid paying state taxes by paying the organization's employees with gifts. The most prominent gift recipient is alleged to be the company's chief financial officer, Allen Weisselberg, who prosecutors were reportedly hoping would cooperate with the investigation and implicate his boss directly. The expected criminal charges are not against Trump personally. Joining us now, former U.S. attorney and an MSNBC contributor, Barbara McQuade. Barbara, what can we glean from the information that we know here?
Well, we have a Trump attorney making public statements that he has learned that the Trump Organization may be charged this week. I would take him at his word. I think that sometimes lawyers try to get out in front of those kinds of allegations so that they can use it to their advantage, try to generate some outrage in response to it. But I would look for charges against the Trump Organization. I would also suspect that if those charges are filed, those would not be the only charges that we'll ultimately see. Sometimes initial charges are filed with the intention that more charges will be filed later, but to use this moment as an opportunity to make a final approach to people like Allen Weisselberg or others who are lower level in the organization than Donald Trump or family members, and try to use it as an opportunity to secure their cooperation.
So Barbara, reports from the Trump side that Vance's office told them today was the deadline to convince them not to bring charges. Is that unusual, sort of this final chance before charges are brought down?
It is unusual, but not unheard of. Sometimes there is an effort to work out some sort of plea agreement or cooperation to say, look, you have an opportunity, whether it is someone like Allen Weisselberg or someone else, you have an opportunity to be a witness instead of a defendant. But we need to go forward. You have not given us an answer yet, and we need to make progress in our case. So on Monday, we're going to file charges, unless you want to talk to us further about some sort of a plea deal or cooperation. Otherwise, those charges will be filed. That is sometimes used just to let people know. I'm sure they're being truthful about it. It is not an idle threat, and I think it's I always saw it as important to follow through with that threat if you did not receive the thing that you were asking for.
So Barbara, what are the consequences, the potential downsides for not just the Trump Organization, but any organization like this that has charges brought against it? Obviously, no personal charges brought against the former president or Weisselberg, but what as the lawyers are sitting around trying to figure out what the implications might be for their organization, what are some of the biggest concerns the Trump Organization might have right now?
Well, number one, if they are convicted of these charges, there would likely be very substantial fines for the organization. Obviously, corporate organizations, corporate entities can't go to prison, but they can face substantial fines. It can also be very harmful to the business dealings of an organization, even to be under indictment. Oftentimes, people don't want to enter into contracts with organizations or affiliate with them for publicity purposes when they're under indictment. So there are a number of problems that occur for a corporation when they're under indictment. But also, I think it signals the possibility that more charges are coming for individuals who are executives of the organization.
Barbara, another story we want to ask you about. In an excerpt from The Atlantic of Jonathan Karl's upcoming book, Betrayal, former Attorney General Bill Barr gives an inside look at his break with President Trump over false claims of election fraud. Karl writes, Barr looked into allegations that voting machines across the country were rigged to switch Trump votes to Biden votes. We realized from the beginning it was just BS, Barr told me, noting that even if the machines somehow changed the count, it would show up when they were recounted by hand.
We realized from the beginning it was just BS.
From the beginning.
Says Barr.
It's a counting machine, and they save everything that was counted. So you just reconcile the two. There had been no discrepancy reported anywhere, and I'm still not aware of any discrepancy. Barr also recounted telling an Associated Press reporter that there was no election fraud and promptly being asked to verify it by then-President Trump, which he did. The former president asked, "How the F could you do this to me? Why did you say it?" "Because it's true," Barr answered. The president, livid, responded by referring to himself in the third person. "You must hate Trump." Oh, my God. I know it's hard. In a lengthy statement released late Sunday, the former president called Barr a rhino who, quote, really let down the American people and, quote, was a disappointment in every sense of the word. Barb McQuade, your thoughts on this and how potentially all of this kind of build up to the big lie could have been put to bed a lot earlier.
Yeah, that report also talks about how Mitch McConnell was urging William Barr to come out and make these public statements, not to save the country, but to save the GOP. Remember, this was during the time when the Georgia Senate race was still up in the air, and Mitch McConnell very much wanted Donald Trump down there campaigning for the Republican candidates, but he was too busy focused on trying to reverse his own election. And so before we deify William Barr for being such a great guy, I mean, I think it is good that he did not further abuse the Justice Department to advance Donald Trump's political agenda. Keep in mind one thing he did do. In the week after the election, he reversed a Justice Department policy that said we are not to investigate election fraud claims before votes are certified. And the reason is that is not the job of the Justice Department. We have secretaries of state around the country whose job is to do what you just said, Mika, to do hand counts and recounts and certify the election results. It is the job of the Justice Department to investigate crimes, and those can be done after the fact. And so changing that policy, I think, was further advancing Donald Trump's agenda in those early days after the election.
And Jonathan Lemire, we see yet another cabinet official, and we saw it happening in real time. Somebody who compromised their integrity, bent over backwards to help Donald Trump, violated, certainly in my view, in the view of many other conservative legal scholars, really breached constitutional norms, putting Donald Trump's interests over the interests of this country, over Madisonian democracy. But still, that not being enough in the end, when he refused to help the president try to overturn a presidential election.
First of all, Joe, this story uses a terrific moment of using the third person, which I think I'm going to start doing more of. You must hate Lemire, perhaps.
Exactly.
No, but
Lemire doesn't like what the Yankees are doing.
Lemire does not like that at all when they start hitting later this year. But no, you're right, Joe, that I think there are a couple things at play here. First of all, a little bit of reputation laundering, obviously, by the former Attorney General, putting this out in this new book that's coming out later this year. But I also think that it goes to show the system held, but just barely. And I think that is one of the biggest lessons coming from what we saw in the 2020 election, with Trump with a full-out assault on our democratic process, on the integrity of the ballot, on how elections are conducted and certified in this nation.